Okay, ladies, today I have Dr. Heather Bartos on, and she is absolutely fabulous. One of the reasons why I wanted to have her on my show is that in her bio, she says she has a knack for making taboo or uncomfortable material approachable. And I was like, yes, I absolutely love that because as women, there's a lot of things that we aren't supposed to talk about. She's an OBGYN by trade, but there's especially in the OBGYN world, like we don't talk about anything south of the navel. Anything south of the navel
Yep.
is not to be discussed. You go once a year, you get uncomfortable, you wear your good underwear, but you make sure you hide it underneath your underneath your good pants. And then you go for what you know. Oh, you also want to make sure you get a bikini wax because just in case they judge. And from every OBGYN that I know, they're like, girl, we don't judge. We're just looking for the innards and then we're getting out.
No judging allowed. None.
There's no judging allowed. So as you can tell, Heather is just one of those people. And so I'm one of those people. So who knows where this conversation is going to lead us. But I really wanted to talk about, as she approached me for the show, she has a topic called self-care is bullshit. And I know for me and everyone else, like we hear all this stuff about like, oh my God, you have to make sure you make time for self-care, 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 self-care. And so Heather, what made you say self-care is bullshit?
Well, it's a great question because I think as women, this goes to our taboo topics. As women, we've been fed a line of shit, which is this is how, as a woman, you take care of yourself. You got kids, a job, you're busy, traffic, pandemics. And so you're like, well, how do I take care of myself in the midst of all this? And no one sits down and has the hard conversation about what that is. Instead, we say, oh, drink some wine, take a bubble bath, get on Pinterest, get on Facebook. And these are not really serving us to the best of our abilities. I liken self-care for women to plants, right? And you
Yeah.
and I are two different plants, but plants come with care instructions. They come with something that says, this is how you care for this plant. I sometimes still kill them. I killed 2 cactuses the other day. I'm very sad about it. But I was treating it like my ponytail fern in the bedroom. I did not heed my own advice, which is they all are treated differently. And so I always talk about what are our care instructions, not self-care, but care instructions. Yours may be sunshine 8 hours a day and water frequently and, eastward facing windows. And mine may be hot, hot, hot. It's not hot though, by the way. Hot, dry. I mean, we have to start looking at what the true caring of ourselves is. And it's not what we read about what everyone else is doing. Hence, it's bullshit.
Yeah, no, and it's you put the nail on the head because it's like that is like what most people think of self-care. It's like, oh, I'm gonna get a manicure or I'm gonna have like wine with friends. And there's nothing wrong with that if that's what you enjoy. But self-care, and I talk about my friend Monica, she locks herself in her pantry for 10 minutes and she puts a timer out and she tells her kids, unless someone is like coming in with a gun, you don't come in this room. That's self-care. Like she just needs a mommy timeout.
Yes. Yes, I think we've the nomenclature is what kind of is jacked up, right? I mean, I totally love manicures. I totally love bubble baths. I love, the glass of wine, but I think that's what we've taught women. That's taking care of yourself. Those are fun escapes. Those are little escapes, but that's not, Monica knows she needs a quiet time out in the pantry. She knows what she needs at that moment for that time, whether it's putting the phone down for 3 hours, whether it's going outside and putting your feet in the damn grass and rising your face to the sun, whatever it is. Yesterday was my birthday.
Oh, happy birthday.
Well, thank you. I won't divulge the age, but anyway, actually, you know what? I would, no big deal.
You're 29.
I'm 29 plus a little bit more, but my mom wanted to have brunch. I love my mom, but I knew that wasn't what I needed to do yesterday. I wanted to be out in the sun because today is supposed to snow here. I wanted to get out in the sun. I wanted to get out in nature. I'm not a nature girl. I mean, if you can see me, I don't look like a nature girl, but I knew I needed to get out in the sunshine. I wanted to eat outside. Like I needed fresh air and sunshine. I don't get that on a daily basis.
Right.
And so I actually made the tough call, Mom, I can't meet with you today. Okay. I'm not doing that. I want to do, this is what I want to do today. This is what my
Right.
body needs. This is what my mind needs. And at the end of the day, she was fine. I felt great. It was just a great day. And, it's hard to say no. It's hard to
Yes.
say when everyone wants to go to like, paint this and all like drink a bunch of wine, get shit faced because we all kind of can do that. And then we paint some picture that doesn't look like anything like the picture, those
Right.
little group things. And I hate those things. I hate doing that. It's awful.
I
But we say
know.
yes because it's self-care and that's what we're taught to do. But you can have playtime by yourself.
Yeah. No, and I love that because there's so much to unpack there. So one, no is self-care.
No is self-care.
And as women, we get caught into, and we touched on this before we started talking of like, our husbands say we're loud. We're told we're loud. Yeah, I'm loud. Oh my God, that's who I am. I can't help myself. But it's like, but we're also told that like, as a woman, we have to go along. We have to go with the flow. We can't be, the one who says no. And, I think so many of us get, we don't do self-care because we get caught into like, well, I have to go here. Like my mom called, she said this, or my husband, or my kids, or my whatever.
Yeah, I think we get stuck in the shoulds.
Yep.
I should I should do this. A good mom should do this. A good wife should do this. A good, business owner should do this. And all of a sudden at the end of it, we haven't taken care of ourselves for squat.
Right. Or like you're driving there and you're like, what the fuck? Why am I like, you're like, you knew in your head you didn't want to. And then as you're driving there, you didn't want to. And then you go and you like put on this like, oh wow, I'm so excited that you invited me. Meanwhile, you're just like, so if I left in an hour, is that enough
Yes.
time?
Can I fake diarrhea? Is that,
Right.
can I all of a sudden have food poisoning? All of a sudden I have COVID. Oh, I just
Right.
came from COVID. I have to run.
I mean, how many cases of COVID could you fake before people realize?
I think you could get by with it for a while in different groups.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, because the CDC did shorten it because I could be like, yeah, I have COVID. I'm out for like 6 months.
I know. Yeah, I had COVID and I was like, this, I'm gonna actually lay in bed for once and take care of myself. And then they shortened it to 5 damn days for healthcare workers. And I was like, shit.
You're like, I was
I,
trying to milk the 14 days.
what about the 14 days? That sounded real nice to me, but yeah, it is what it is. I got 5 days.
But then you also said you have to listen to what your body needed. And you are, in your practice, you talked about women to like listening to our bodies. And so many of us are so outside of our body. Like we don't even know like what good feels like anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think again, whether it's social media, whether it's what we've heard, we think we know what our bodies are saying us, but sometimes if you just go sit and listen to her, she's saying something totally different. Like, for instance, everyone wanted to do keto for a while, right? Everyone was doing keto. And now every woman I meet, she's like, I've gained 20 pounds. I'm like, sister, get in line. We've all gained 20 pounds. That's
Right.
called age. It's called pandemic. It's called everything. I thought carbs were my friends. Those bitches lied to me. They were not my friends. So here we all are 20 pounds later. And she's like, well, everyone does keto. I need to do keto. I'm like,
Right.
keto is not for everybody. She got kidney stones from
Right.
keto. And, that's listening to your body. You got to really listen to her. You can't fake listen to her. You have to really like dig in and be like, what does she need? What is she saying to me? And they'll tell you, your body will tell you the answers.
Well, and I think many of us are like, I hear it, but you're not saying what I want you to say.
Yes. Yes. It's kind
So
of
if I,
like, what we do with our kids and our husbands and our mother, we're like,
right.
yeah, 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 yeah. I know what you're going to say, but maybe you don't.
Right. Or maybe if I keep punching you in the face, you'll eventually say what I want you to say.
Exactly.
And then, then you're up 20 pounds and you're like, how'd this happen? I'm like, because you beat yourself into submission and your body was like, girlfriend, no.
Yeah. Yeah. And we have to take ownership of those moments, right? Like, I mean, I fully admit I gained 20 pounds during the pandemic. I actually still feel great about myself because I was like, fuck it. Everyone else is gaining pounds. And why are we all worried? We're all worried about dying and
Right.
everything. And so, but I have to take ownership in the fact that, I didn't listen. I just kind of kept shoving the carbs in or, stress eating. And so here we are. but I'm not going to blame it on the pandemic. I mean, I'm going to blame it on what I put in my mouth. And it's not
Right.
blame, it's more responsibility, right? Like
Yes.
it's I'm responsible for my pet. I'm not going to blame my pet. I'm responsible for I take care of my pet. And so our bodies are like that. I'm responsible for what I did to her. And now I'm responsible for getting her out of the mess that I put her in.
Right, and I love that. It sounded like a quote like a long time ago about me responsible. And as a woman, we'll take responsibility, like we're like a responsibility magnet for everybody else. You're responsible to make sure your kids get to school on time and they bring all their shit with them. And everyone else, you're responsible to make sure, everything gets where it needs to be. But when it comes to you, that responsibility as far as like weight or not getting enough sleep or stress, it's over here. Like it's this like foreign entity that you have no control over. Like someone came over to you and said, "Here, Heather, eat all this. Here, Heather, don't work out. Here, Heather," and you're just like you had choice in that.
We have complete choice, right? All the time. As women, we have choices. And, while we still have to take care of kids and work and all that stuff, I mean, those are things we've agreed to do. Our bodies are usually the last thing that we take care of
Yes,
because she keeps
absolutely.
running, right? She'll just keep doing it until you finally wear her ass out. And all of a sudden, then you look back and you got dark circles and you've gained some weight and you got wrinkles and you're not pooping or, the whole thing. She'll start to tell you after a while that she's not happy with you. And it's time to say, oh, you were my responsibility too. And I didn't give you the time and attention you needed.
Yeah, when I in my overtraining world, my coach said to me, she's like, "Kim, do you ever watch NASCAR?" And I was like, "No." And she's like, "Okay, but you know what it is." I was like, "Yes." And she goes, "Do you think like, they go 500 miles without gas?" And I'm like, "Never really thought about it, but yeah." I'm like, I don't know of a car that goes 500 miles without gas." And she
Right.
goes, "Well, that's what you're trying to do. You're trying to go 500 miles without gas." And she's like, "Even if they're winning the race, their car says, 'Hey, I'm on E.' You got to pull your car in and refuel."
That's right.
And so many of us, I know I drive past the yellow light when my car comes on. I've taken it down to like 2 miles. However, do I do that all the time? No. I still take it down to about 30, but taking it down to like 2 miles was a little aggressive. And that's what we do all the time. Like we see the yellow light, or maybe we ignore the yellow light, thinking that it'll go away if I just turn the radio up a little bit. And then, we wonder why, we do get sick. We do always feel like bleh, because we just aren't listening.
Yeah, yeah. And we will not do that for anyone else that we take care of. No one
Mhm.
else. You would never let your kids ride up to E. You'd be like, here's $10, go put that in the car. It's halfway full. Here's some
Right.
money, honey, go fill it up. And we do that when they're hungry. Are you hungry? Do you need to eat something? Do you need
Right.
to take a nap? But for us, we're moving still, so we must be okay.
Right. Or like, we are very like to the point of like, you have to have a bedtime and this is your routine. And we're making sure, there's tubby time and all the damn stuffed animals are out and the 3 stories or whatever and the glass of water. Yet for us, we'll just like crash on the couch and then crawl ourselves to bed, maybe.
Yeah, yeah. Because we haven't said no enough.
Yeah. Or, I know a lot of, and I'm sure you've heard this topic, revenge bedtime. And for those of you guys who don't know what revenge bedtime is, it's basically as a mom, you've done all the shit. And then now this is your small fragment of time where no one is going to be calling your name or needing anything, want anything. So you're basically staying up later because that's your time.
That's a
And I
problem.
know I have a lot of clients who fall into that category. And I was like, but are you a better mom being tired all the damn time? Because it's like, just like, I'm like, your kids got to get up too. That means you got to get up.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's, I guess it's as long as your body's working, and it will at 40 and it will at 45. And as
Mhm.
time goes on, you don't bounce back as quickly from that. And so you're kind of stuck in this loop, right? Just
Mm.
kind of loop. And then you think, oh, well, I'll just drink some wine. That's some self-care. That's some, I'll cut sex off my to-do list. I'll cut, exercise, whatever it is. We just like little energizer bunnies. We just kind of keep going.
Yeah.
And then eventually, You got the generic battery, so you'll peter out banging your little drum,
Yeah.
and then you're done.
You know, and I like what you just said. You're like, so I'm tired. So I'm going to start removing things that bring me joy so that I can keep up with the rest of my life. And so you're right. Like I've had the topic of sex before, so we're going to go there. That you're right. Like maybe that's in that small window of time that you and your partner have together. You're like, you know what? Would I rather have sex with you or just be by myself?
Yeah.
And so then you wonder why you lose that part of your relationship, because it's like you've made that choice.
You've made the choice, and it's an easy push off, right? It doesn't seemingly hurt anyone to say, not tonight, we'll do it later, we'll connect later. And all of a sudden you look back and it's been 8 months or a year or what, and time just kind of goes by. And so it's real. I always thought it's really dangerous to take sex off the to-do list. Like it's
Yeah.
really, even if you don't have a partner, even if it's just sex with yourself, it's really important. That literally is a form of self-care, self-love. It's what I always kind of call it, because you're literally feeding your body with all the hormones that you need to keep going.
Right. But also it's like, you know, you can't always live for, as women, we do live for other people. Well, that's a connection.
Yep.
That's a connection to your spouse, because after those kids leave the house, it's just the two of you. And many people wake up and they're like, do I even like you after all
Who is
these
this fucker? Who are
right.
you?
Right. Like at 22, I thought you were hot, but right now I'm not feeling it. So, you know, it's kind of important as we, you know, move through life that like you move your partner with you through life, because after the kids leave and they have their own lives, like who are you?
Yeah, yeah, I think it's important. If you are both the plants on the windowsill, check in on your partner's self-care too. Now, if your partner's a man, they're usually a little bit better about, but even guys these days have become less, we've kind of demasculinated the men. Is that a word? I just made that up, maybe.
It works.
Demasculinated the men. And so, they're just kind of like hanging out, going, okay, well, that's why online porn has become big, because that's where people are getting their connections. I'm using quotes, but it's not serving anyone. And we see these moms on Facebook. I see them all the time, and all they do is live for their kids. They're at
Yes.
a cheerleader thing. They're at every this, and I'm like, when the fuck do you sit down? I mean,
Yeah.
I have a good friend that does that, and I'm like, she's like, I'm going here tonight. It's 9 o'clock, and I'm gonna go pick up my daughter at cheer, and I'm like, lady, that's brutal. 9 o'clock,
And
shit.
I
No.
and I flash back to my childhood, and I'm like, one, I wasn't running all over creation like these kids are. Like I had one thing I did. Like I wasn't in 50 things. My mom was like, pick one thing.
Yeah.
I'm not running all over creation for you. I love you, but I'm not running all over creation.
Right.
You know,
And you had more responsibility at a younger age. We had to go out, you played outside and you watched for
yeah.
cars, and no one was like, well, watch for the cars. Don't, we now over parent because we're so worried about everything. But then you also see Susie down the street who's, taking her kids, and you're like, well, God bless, and I must be lazy because everyone's taking their kids to everything. And then all of a sudden you're become like the tiger mom who's dragging them everywhere, and you never have a moment for yourself. But there's a good excuse because you're doing it for the love of your children.
Right. I'm a good mom. I'm a
It's a
good
lie.
mom. Right. So that I'm a good mom because I take them 50 different places and I become pretty much the family Uber.
Yeah.
Uh,
Your
and
kids will love you even if you don't take them everywhere.
no, and I feel like it now, they say that attention span is like, I think like 7 seconds. And I think it's 7 seconds because there's always stimulation, always, always stimulation. Where like when we were kids, there was no such thing as the internet. So if I needed interaction, I had to go outside or invent it. Like
Yep.
read a damn book, like do something that took a little bit more attention to get the stimuli that we need now. Where now kids are like, Monday's hockey and Tuesday's this and Thursday's that. And you're like, oh, wow, how do you keep it all together?
Yeah. And I worry about these kids, this kind of generation below us, when they get to be moms, are they going to keep doing
Oh,
stuff, or are they going to be like, hey, I really can disconnect and go do something by myself? They can't do anything by themselves right now. So, and my kids are guilty of this too. You know, I'm like, get up, they're always on music, always. I had a boom
yeah.
box that I used to
Oh my God.
rewind the tape,
And
flip
then
it over.
the tape got stuck. You had your pencil.
You know, but you couldn't listen to the damn boombox all day. You know, first of all, it weighed about 40 pounds, and you know, so you dragged it along. Now they're always just listening to music. And I'm like,
Yeah.
music does not just live around you. It's not like a movie soundtrack.
I
Cool.
laugh that you say that, because it's like, they don't know the pain of like having to like wait to listen to the radio and to listen to your song
The
come
song, yeah.
on, and like, wait for like hours and hours because you want to tape it, and then you're like, but I
Yeah.
have to go to the bathroom, and then just as you're say screw it, I'm going to the bathroom, the song comes on and you have to sprint down the hallway to like press record.
And every time you taped it, it would start off like because you would push it
Right.
like as the song was coming. So you always missed like the first 5 seconds of the song.
Or the
Yeah.
DJ was over talking like, oh, this is the greatest hit from blah blah blah, and you're like, shut the fuck up, I want to hear the song.
Yes, these young ones today, you know, and that actually, I saw a great article recently about kids because I really thought that my oldest, who's a girl, she's turning 12 soon, and I really was like, why is she so fucking irresponsible? Why can't she just get her shit together?
You're like, I've been waiting.
Please. And I'm like, come on, like, why can't you get your schoolwork? I mean, like, and the other kid he's very organized, and he says, and I'm like, what? There's a problem with her. She's jacked up.
Right.
It was something I did while I was pregnant with her. Of course, it's my fault. And I read a great article talking about how these children are not irresponsible, or they're not non-responsible. They're pre-responsible. They just haven't learned the keys to responsibility. And I go, that totally shifted my idea. I mean, there's times that I'm pre-responsible. I just haven't learned the skill yet to do that. And I think that's where a lot of women are right now. When we talk about
Right.
responsibility, it's not that we're being irresponsible. We're not trying to blame any woman for not being responsible for, but we're not taught to be responsible for what we do. Boy, I just looped that on back. See that, Kim? I was like,
I
woo.
know.
And
I love that.
I when that happened, I actually was able to kind of breathe and go, oh, so she's not fucked up. We're not all fucked up. We just haven't learned it yet. It's a skill we haven't taken in yet. So therefore, it's something that we can learn. So now we can all start being responsible. And there's a great book, and it's an odd book for me to talk about because it was written by two Navy SEAls, but it's called Extreme Ownership, and they do
Yeah.
the guy looks like he could probably kill both of us with like a single snap of his fingers. The guy that wrote it, and these are big badass Navy SEAls, but they talk now about extreme ownership it's a business. It's a business concept. They consult with businesses, but I love the premise for everything, for cleaning, for health, for all of it. Because when you take extreme ownership, it's not that you're responsible for it, but you also, the buck stops with you.
Yes.
So with your body, if you're like, hey, we'll go back to the weight gains because it's easy. We gain 20 pounds. You know what? That was me. That was me. I did that.
Yeah.
And by doing that, you're accepting your power. You're accepting you're in
Ooh.
control now. You're not at the whim of the pandemic or the carbs or whatever it is. I am in control. And I loved that feeling for business, but I use it in health now because I'm like, this is you, baby. This is you. Take ownership of it. You own this.
Yeah.
And so it's a great book. I know if people are like, why the fuck is she talking about a book about Navy SEALs
No.
and business? But it's applicable over on the other side. And I think I wish that I could get this big burly looking dude with the low set ears. I wish he would do more stuff, cross over, to like
Yeah.
other things, because I think it's really fascinating. It's extreme ownership.
No, I absolutely love that. And so, do you know a guy named Jesse Eitzler?
Yes, yes.
So Jesse Eitzler, I want to like spend a day with him because I find him he's just so like fascinating and kooky at the same time. So he invited this Navy SEAL to come and live with him for 30 days. and didn't tell his wife. Like the guy literally rang the doorbell. Like
Oh no.
Jesse met him at a an ultra marathon. They met, they like fast friends, invited him to come live with him to help him train for his next ultra marathon. Just showed up. Sarah Blakely's like, hey, you're living here now, okay, and like she just rolled with the punches. And he like, they wrote a book together about how like it was like I think it's called like the SEAL way, whatever. But basically, just like the discipline and the regimen that they, as a SEAL, you go through to get through, you know, the training process, and that's what Jesse wanted to do. And so this guy David Goggins did it with him. And I just think to myself, like, you know, I have a very good friend who Navy SEAL for 25 years. And just the like, when you see him in his life, it's like, it's very methodical. And that's what, you know, if anything out of the military, that's what they teach you. They teach you a method that's repeatable. And many of us want that, like, what's that pill, Heather, you could give me that I just take, you know, take it for a week and then I'm set for life. You know, what's that cleanse that I can do and I'm set for life? And it's not set for life. It's what these people are talking about. It's like, I got to own my shit, and I got to learn the skills that help me own my shit.
Yeah, because if you know, again, that's all that self-care is our plant instructions, right? It's like I have so many women that are like, give me the pill. What's the pill for my sex drive? What's the pill for this? And I'm like, there is none, baby. Because if there was one, trust me, I would be retired living in Bali, and not,
just writing prescriptions all damn day.
Yeah. I mean, it's just that we've been sold this, like, and it's the same thing. You know, generations ago was snake oil, right? That the snake oil was going to come through and this will cure everything. And people bought it, and people are still trying to buy it because we want the easy. We want the easy because we're tired. We're all fucking so tired. But when you start talking about ownership and responsibility, it makes you feel empowered. You're an empowered woman now. You're like, you know what? I can decide my own fate here. This is what I want to do. And I now take the blame for everything in my business. And this, I go, you know what? That falls on me, because in the military, stuff rolls uphill. Right. And the one that takes the responsibility is the highest level person that sent them out there. And so, you know, if my kid didn't do great on the test, you know, that's probably a little bit on me too. I'm not blaming myself. I'm not blaming her. It's, again, responsibility and ownership. And it's pretty fucking awesome when you can get into the gestalt of it and start moving with it.
Yeah, because it's like, you know, I always tell my clients is that I think of life as like a crime scene. There's a dead body on the floor. I'm like, there's blood on the wall. There's a knife. There's a gun. What happened? And so it's like, we have to look at like our weight gain. What the fuck happened? You know, was it my overeating? Is it some type of hormonal problem? Is it this? Is it that? Is it that? Where it's like, we have to start to kind of like break down what the fuck happened. And I can't just blame my hormones, because my hormones didn't go haywire unless I did something to push the button. And if I don't stop pushing that damn button, regardless of if I see a person like you, they can only do what they can do until I take ownership of some of the shit I'm doing.
Yep. Yeah. And I see that with patients. You know, if I say, you know, look, this is what's going on, I think you could tweak this a little bit better in this, you know, hormonally. And then they leave, and I have women come back and they go, it didn't work. And I'm like, it's been a week. It doesn't work in a week, love. I mean, it just doesn't. Or they just run out of their medicine and they never come back. And then like, well, I'm back to square one. Yep. Because you gotta, at some point, I mean, at any age, but really once you're 40, you gotta start saying, this is what I'm going to take care of. I choose me. And I had one come in the other day and she's like, I've been out of my medicine for 3 months now. I'm like, yes.
Did you lose my number?
And I'm like, she's like, well, I'm like back to bleeding all the time, and I'm back to this. And I'm like, yes, that's kind of how that works. So I'll refill this, but you got to take responsibility. And I feel like an asshole when I say this to my husband. I'm like, honey, come on, we got this. Like, just write it on a calendar. Just start making it a habit. You know, read Atomic Habits, whatever you need to do, make it part of your life.
Right. Like when you look in the jar and you only see 3 pills left. Is that a clue? Is that not a clue that I need to do something?
You would think, but you'd be surprised Friday afternoon how many people are calling for that refill. And I usually tell my daughter, she takes medicine. I say, okay, when you have 5 pills left, we're going to call for a refill. That way you have a buffer.
Right. So just in case, like, it's a busy day and they can't get to you, or it's a busy day at the pharmacy.
There's an ice storm. There's a, whatever. Right. They're out of it. Yeah. It's just kind of rethinking on how this works. I mean, and I use my calendar for this. I'm kind of a calendar freak, but I can't do those beautiful planners that people do that look so, Erin conjured something for my birthday. I go, I that looks like that takes all of my time. I want it to look that pretty. I really do. I'm like, I love the way this looks.
I have fantasies, but it's not going to happen.
It's not, my handwriting's not that pretty. I'm not going to do the different gel pen colors. And so I just slap it on my computer now. And I go through that computer I'm like, okay, order more stuff here, I slap these little notes on myself so I remember to start doing stuff. And once it's there, then it becomes a habit, right? Like once you see it, like every Sunday night, I have water my plants and exfoliate my skin as an appointment. And now it's automatic. I just know I do those 2 things.
Yeah. And I am a big fan of the to-do list. Mine, I'm a paper calendar person, but I'm also appointments are in here. Like if this doesn't beep at me, I would be walking around the day. Like today, I literally am like, okay, what's on the calendar for today? Okay, set an alarm on my phone so that I'm not like, oh, I'm supposed to be doing something. Oh, I was supposed to do it an hour ago. So I just have to do that to keep myself organized. And what you talked about was, deciding your own fate. And I feel that a lot of women think their fate is outside of them, that there's, I don't know, space aliens come down and they're the reason why I don't have time in my day. And I'm like, because you don't plan. And I'm not saying that my day is planned moment by moment by moment. That's too much for me. But it's like, I sit down, I'm like, today, here's what I need to do, so I don't run out of time.
Yeah. And I think because of that damsel in distress kind of Disney princess kind of mindset that we were raised with, we were taught that someone was going to come in and solve this for us, right? There, the shining knight on the white horse or whatever.
Right, exactly.
Messing that up, I think. But, we were taught someone's going to come in and save you. And it's been a real disservice because, like you said, who's going to fix it? And I think we're expecting someone will come in and fix it for us. Someone's going to come make this all better, and the answer is no one's coming, baby. No one's coming. But you have the power.
There's a book, I think it's Barbara Stanley, that's who, Barbara Stanley, and she wrote a book called Prince Charming Isn't Coming. And she wrote it about how she was this pampered housewife and then found out that her husband pretty much pissed away their money, and she was like, oh fuck, what do I do now? But you're right. If we go back to the woman who was bleeding for 30 days, and that's that's in my mind, that's fucking annoying. That's just one more thing on my to-do list that could be off my to-do list if I dealt with it.
Bleeding off your to-do list.
Right. To me, I'm like, oh God, I'm like, it happens for me 5 days a week. And I'm like, that's annoying. It's 5 days a month. So that's annoying. But I'm like, if it happens to me every single day, I would be so pissed off that I was like, I have to fucking deal with this.
Yes.
And I see that all the time with my clients where it's someone's like, oh yeah, I'm not really pooping. And I'm like, so are you constipated? I'm like, do you have pain? Like, yeah, sometimes. And I'm like, but you're you say, yeah, sometimes, yeah, sometimes I have a headache. That's annoying.
Yeah.
And it doesn't annoy you enough to sit down and be like, I'm going to figure out what the fuck is going on.
Yeah. If I'm constipated for one time, I'm usually over here going, what the hell did I do? Or what do I do? Because it's awful. And I'm right with the bleeding too. And I wonder at what point, what's going through people's minds, oh, maybe it'll get better, or, it'll probably stop, or, are they thinking that I'm just going to feel that they're bleeding and I'm going to call them and say, oh, I read in the universe that you're bleeding.
Right.
Let me fix that, because there are things I can do, but if you're trying to get pregnant also, I can't, there's not much I can do. So, I think that we've expected this kind of someone's going to come fix it for me, right? But there's no one coming. But the
Right.
power is you. You can fix it.
Or if they tell you once, as a coach, someone will tell me like, oh, I'm constipated. And I was like, okay, I'm like, make sure we're, getting enough water, we're getting enough fiber. Like, what does your diet look like? And they're like, oh yeah, but I'm just taking Colace, so it's fine. And I was like, I'm like, you're 40 years old. You're going to take Colace for the next 40 years? Or are you going to try to figure out like why you can't fucking poop?
Yeah. 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 Because we start with those things, right? You start with the basics, water, fiber, etc., and you try that. And if you're still having trouble, then you probably need to go to the doctor.
Right.
Because then you got to check next tier, right? Next tier might be, is there a problem? Do you have a mass? Do you have, whatever?
Right.
And then you got to go to the next tier, and so it starts with you. I mean, we can waste time on me saying, let's do water and that, but start for that for yourself. Start figuring out root causes of like why, like you're saying, you're deconstructing your dead body scene. And then when you come in, you already have an arsenal of material that you've taken care
Right.
of, data that you can give me to say, okay, I've tried these things and I've tried them religiously. I've tried them not just
Right.
one time, but I've taken Colace for a month. I've taken water, I've taken mirror, whatever you've done. Now we got some data we can work with. So now it's been 30 days. We should see some improvement. So let's try something else. But if you try it one time, I took one Colace and my poop was still hard. Yeah, that's how that's going to work.
Right.
And the same with the water. You can't just drink one glass of water and, well, why is it still not working? Why is my skin not glowing?
Yeah.
Because you gotta do that shit for a while, baby girl. You gotta do it
Right.
for a while.
Well, I've been taking collagen, so it should glow overnight.
I know. I've done these things. And that's why I think we're laughing
Oh,
because we've been there. I have done that. I took collagen for like 3 days and I was like, I don't see a difference.
yeah.
And I was like, it kind of makes my coffee kind of gross. So maybe I'll skip it. But you got, so we've done it. I've done it. I've been,
Yeah.
but if I really want something, if I really want the glowy skin or I gotta put in the time, right?
Absolutely.
I gotta put in the time for it.
And I love that as coming from a doctor, because I know my doctor, like, she's like, okay, what have you been doing? And I'm like, hang on. So, and she's like, I love that about you, Kim, because you come in and you've already you've already taken at least 2 or 3 steps that I would have told you, and then said, if it doesn't, work, call me and come back in. And I was like, no, I got time to come back in. I want to be able to be like, I've already preloaded some stuff, the
Yeah.
basics. And I don't want you to tell me the basics. Kind of like when I call my cable company and my internet's not working, and they're like, have you unplugged the router? I'm like, all right, let me just back you up before you even tell me that. This is what I've done. And I don't want to fucking hear about the router other than you're going to send a pulse. That's the only thing I want to hear.
Yes. Well, and that's an important message too, because, if you call and you haven't done those things, we're just kind of wasting time, right? Because you
Right.
wasted the hour you've been on the hold for the cable company, and then they're going to tell you, and you go, oh, okay, let me try that. Now I'm gonna have to call you back when that doesn't work. So by doing some of those steps ahead of time, whether it's health or whatever it is, you've actually moved forward in the line, right? You have more
Right.
info than say the average person may. And so they're already like, okay, I'm dealing with an expert here. Let's keep going. And I think a lot of women don't. We just say, okay, what do I need to do first? Well, the first 3 steps we should be able to do ourselves,
Right.
whatever it is.
And I know, Heather also has a podcast called The Me Spot. And I love it. I was like kind of going through and binging a few of your episodes. And one of the episodes that you talked about was about being Dr. Google. And now I will say that, certain things can be Dr. Google. Like you're not gonna diagnose cancer on Google. But if I'm constipated, most places are gonna tell you water and fiber. They're gonna start there. So
Yep.
it's like
Yep.
you at least can get basic health information. And like she said, if it goes on for more than 30 days and you've been consistent with that, that's when you go to your doctor and you've already said, I've already unplugged the router, I put it back in. What's next? Here's, and ask. Like I've said, I'm like, this is what I've done. Here are things I've been researching. What's bullshit and what's, something we can explore.
Well, and that's why I joke about Dr. Google, because almost every, whatever it is, it will lead to cancer being on the list.
For sure.
I
For
mean,
sure.
and so our women that will have a headache for a week, it's
And it's a
sinus
brain
symptom.
tumor.
And she's like, it said it could be a brain tumor. I'm like, oh, honey. I mean, everything says that. Like, you will go down the rabbit hole and it will get to cancer
Right.
or something horrible. And I mean, I Dr. Google my car sounds. I Google stuff all day long. Please, Google and I have a great relationship, but it creates a fear, right? When you get that cancer, oh gosh, it could be a brain tumor. Well, it could.
Right.
Could be a brain tumor, but it also could be about 55 things way before that are not going to kill you.
Right.
So, just take the initial steps, take your sinus medicine, take your Advil as you need to up the water, get better sleep, I mean, all those things, so that when we get there, we're not now going, okay, it's allergies.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. It's like, I've had these severe allergies for X number of years. And now we can, be like, okay, maybe it's now time for prescription medication that Sudafed can't cover for you anymore.
Yeah. And it's not fair to be scared all the time. Every time you go on there, look at something and you're like, okay, well, it said I could have cervical cancer. Yes, but there's only about 20,000 cases of cervical cancer every year. So then I had to give facts. Well, this is not likely the diagnosis. You've had a normal pap smear in the past year, et cetera, et cetera. But why did we go through the fear of, oh my gosh, it's this? And it's very rarely that.
Yeah, exactly. Because it's like, oh, you really just have a UTI. Sorry.
Yes. Yes.
And that's
But we
treatable.
automatically go to fight or flight. And then we're stressing ourselves out. Then the cortisol's up, then we're getting rounder, and then hormones are jacked up again. So it's, that's why I'm not a fan of Googling medical symptoms unless you have the understanding that this is probably something easy to correct. And then therefore we'll start with the top.
Yeah, exactly. But I laugh because I had kidney stones, and as you're sitting in the ER, like waiting for someone to see you. My husband's Googling, and of course, like, the doctor walks in and she looks like she's 10. And and she's like, I really think it's kidney stones, but she's like, she's like, I can't see it on the ultrasound, so it's good news. It's probably small. So she's like, you just have to, let it pass. She's like, I can give you some pain medication, but that's really all I can do for you at this point. So, at this point, it's like 2 a.m. and you're just, exhausted and just like bitchy. And so my husband's like, so I'm Googling here. And she just like rolls her eyes.
I know. I feel bad when I do. I'm like, on that episode, I'm always like, I'm probably gonna get some hate mail over this, but it's true, because you're like, we only have so long to make a diagnosis, and we're gonna go with first things first. And while I appreciate people like do the research, like you're gonna bring in your little pad with all the things you've done. Sometimes, when I hear, what about this? I'm like, oh Lord.
You're like, that happens in your eye, and we're talking about your vagina. So there's that.
I'm like, I don't think you have hookworm or whatever, whatever, some tapeworm or whatever it could be. I don't think that's what it is.
Right. So keep eating sushi.
Oh, please don't take my sushi away. Please. No.
Stop watching Grey's Anatomy. And
oh, yes. Grey's Anatomy has destroyed my career. None of us have sex in the hallways or anywhere. I've never had sex in the hospital, ever. There are not the hot male doctors. No, there's no McDreamy or any of those things. They do not exist. Shonda Rhimes. I mean, it's like Bridgerton, right? Like Bridgerton 2, I think, is coming out soon. While I love Shonda Rhimes, I'm like, all I could think of when Daphne and the Duke were having all that sex is, oh, she's going to get a UTI.
And then you think to yourself, you're like, well, I've also watched Downton Abbey, and the only person who was promiscuous only did it twice before she got married.
Yes. These shows are fantasies. Yes.
I know. I laugh because my doctor is physically in a hospital, and I like walk through, and I'm like, there is nobody hot here. There's no one hot here.
There is nobody hot.
And before COVID, there was always 400 people in the elevator. So it's like, how are you alone in an elevator able to have sex without people complaining about the 2 elevators aren't working?
I don't understand it. I guess people have, they talk about these call rooms, but I don't think the real public has ever seen what a real call room looks like. It looks like an army bunker
Yeah.
with like a crappy old, like either an old hospital bed that's from like 1960 that they just shoved in a room for you, that the sheets probably haven't been washed in decades,
Right.
or like some twin bed they got like Ashley's home sale kind of thing that no one wanted. And that's it usually. Like there's a sink and there's maybe a TV with like the big tube behind it, like
right, from 1975.
Yeah, and that's kind of it. And I'm like, there's no way I'd have sex in that room. Mm-mm.
The one I've seen, it looks pretty much like a camp dorm.
Yeah,
like
yeah,
there's like 3 bunk beds with just
yeah,
enough room for you to like jump out of
yeah,
and not
yeah.
like hit the other bunk bed.
Oh yeah, yeah. And I gotta tell you, I'm not, I don't want to climb into a bunk bed at 4 a.m. Like I
No,
just don't want to do it anyway. But yeah, so I think Shonda, while she's brilliant, has kind of, you know,
ruined the
skipped over some
medical.
of the realities, taken some poetic licenses on these
Yeah,
things.
not everyone has like the blockbuster disease when they walk in the door. It's usually something pretty simple.
It's thank goodness.
You're like, it makes my job seem a little uneventful after watching Grey's Anatomy.
I remember ER was the big one, and
Oh yeah.
ER they would deliver like a 20-week preemie that we can't save, and they would the ER doctors would do all of this, and I'm like, there's people upstairs. You should be calling for some more
Support.
assistance. But okay.
George Clooney is topless and like bonding with the baby.
Oh, yes, skin to skin time. And I'm assuming that the lawyers feel the same way about all illegal shows, that,
Oh
they
God,
got
yeah.
a big gavel, they're not banging I got called to jury duty recently, and it was not as cool, sexy. Tom Cruise wasn't there in a naval uniform, and I was just like, this isn't as exciting as it looks on TV.
Yeah, no. And they weren't sharp dressed. Like every lawyer, I was like, dude, did you iron that before you showed up here today?
Yeah. And the jurors, I was like, what do you do? And he's like, I was like, no one's talking, no one's writing, no one's whatever. And I'm like, this is dull. I was disappointed.
Yeah, no, I just remember sitting in that room, like waiting for them to like call you to see if you would be on there. And I'm like drinking everyone's drinking their Dunkin' Donuts coffee, like looking around being like, you gonna make it? Because I hope you make it and not me. And
right. So I got called and I had something to talk to the judge because I deliver babies. I can't be stuck here. I'm by myself. And so I was like, bailiff, I called him bailiff. I need to please speak to the judge to explain my situation. And I was really formal, right? And he's like, okay. So I walk in and I'm like, I'm at the microphone, I'm like, Your Honor, pleased to meet you. And I'm like, why am I being such a stupid asshole right now? I was stupid for me. He's like, oh, I get it. Yeah, babies come whenever. Okay, you're excused. I'm like, that was so not very cinematic. I was hoping for something like, bang the gavel, order the court,
No, you have to stay. Yeah. So
but I was like, oh, okay, well, thanks. Peace. Bye.
Maybe I'm an OBGYN.
You could be.
Do they ask you for anything?
They didn't ask me for anything. I didn't have to prove anything.
Yeah, maybe I am.
I had a whole slew of possible excuses, but the OB-GYN thing worked.
Yeah, because if I think about it, my guy, and she doesn't do it anymore, but there were times I would be sitting in the waiting room and she's like, hey, you're going to see my nurse practitioner because I'm about to go deliver a baby. And I'm like, interesting. And then I thought it was interesting when she got pregnant. I was like, this is weird. and she's like, what do you mean it's weird? And I was like, but you delivered them. I don't really think of you having them.
Yeah. Well, it's really weird when you go into labor and no one wants to touch you. The nurses don't want to touch you because they're like, well, but I work with you. I'm like, could someone please get this baby out?
Right. If I could do it myself, I would. But at this point, we're not out in the fields of China. So I have support here.
No, and I swear everyone came in and looked at my butt after I delivered. I'm like, do all of you need to look at my butt? Because I swear it was like they were selling tickets out there or something. But
you've seen this before, right?
I'm like, why are we all? We don't do this normally, do we? All come look at my massive hemorrhoid? I don't think so.
Right. But, Grey's Anatomy. See, it was
Grey's Anatomy.
It was a teachable moment.
I wish, well, actually, I'm glad that Dreamy or McSteamy didn't walk in on that moment because they don't need to see my butthole.
No, they don't.
But
They don't
no,
at all.
yeah, we have to
So
get it done too.
I know. So I've absolutely enjoyed this conversation. We hit so many topics. We started at self-love. Oh, sorry, self-care. We also talked about self-love. We talked about the whole, we have to listen and we have to, the extreme ownership. I think that is absolutely fabulous. And I just circled it to make sure I add that to reading my book, because I read the David Goggins book and I was like, SEALs are just very like, no
Yeah.
shit.
Yeah, they're badasses. They're badass.
Badass is like very regimented. And I think that's what we're missing in our lives, is like having this regiment of taking a time out for ourselves.
Because even SEALs do meditation
Yeah.
and other things. They really have perfected kind of their time, right? And you wouldn't think that. You wouldn't think that they would also work on the other side of themselves. You
Well,
just think,
if you think about it, they're always in high pressure situations. Like when you call in the SEALs, it's not because you need help like unloading something. They're not coming for flood relief, right? They're coming because like shit went wrong and they got to come in and save somebody or take up someone out.
yeah,
And so they have to like flip on the switch, like be able to like work in like fast but calm, which a lot of us would be like, oh my god, the whole
yes,
time.
yes. And they constantly are training so they don't lose it.
Yeah.
Because even if they don't do their workouts or their whatever, they're gonna get quote unquote go soft. They're gonna look, they're gonna get off their game, so that to stay sharp, they have a very consistent plan. I think that's what
Right.
I personally work on, trying to be consistent with what I
Yes.
do. That's what we've kind of talked about. Like, again, taking the one colace isn't going to do it, but consistently. And I remember a quote, I don't know, I may have saw it on Pinterest one day when I was on Pinterest thinking I was doing self-care. And it was something about consistent, persistent, and resilient. And I thought those are three amazing nouns that I think are, and I need to be consistent, persistent, and resilient. Because I think resilience is another thing that they do that I think is amazing. It's bouncing back. Okay, we fucked up, but bounce back.
Yes. Yeah.
Get your tits up and let's keep going.
Those three words are fabulous. You're right. It's like if I'm not consistent, then it's really easy to be like, well, I tried that, didn't work.
Yeah.
So that when I'm not consistent, I need to come back to find that resiliency of like, you know what? This was just one road I went down. There's 500 other roads I could possibly go down, so that I can see that I do have that bounce back quality. Like I can, as LL Cool J says, don't call it a comeback. I've been here for years.
I love him.
I know.
I was thinking on the Super Bowl too. Oh my gosh.
He's like fine wine. I'm like, I look at him and I was like, dude, you've been around since the 80s and you still look amazing.
I wake up with one pant leg up and I'm like, look, I'm pulling an LL Cool J, and no one knows what I'm talking about. But
my family's like, yeah, mom, you're kind of not.
I know, but I love him. I love him.
I love him too. He's amazing. So I always ask my guests one question, like, what's one thing that makes you feel magical?
Oh, I have in the past this answer's probably always changing for me, but
Perfect.
One thing in the past year is playtime. Playing makes me feel magical, and I don't think as adults we think that that's okay anymore. I like to just go and play whatever it is. It's sometimes I'll hang out with my kids on video games, and I'll go old school arcade style. I'll be like, watch this. Or I'll do something outside and we'll just go bare feet in the grass and we'll play ball. It's or bubbles, it's those kind of moments where you feel you recapture the magic of your youth when you didn't care and you didn't have a lot of things that you were worried about. And so that's what makes me feel magical.
Awesome. I love that. Because you're right. The whole outdoor play, like that's just not something I see kids do. Like, when I was a kid, there's always kids in the street. Like I can drive down my street 50 times and I'll see a kid out there playing in the street.
Yeah. Yeah. You play kickball or whatever. And like you get car and everyone moves off and then everyone moves right back in. And yeah, you just don't see that anymore. So yeah. So we try to do play. It's good for me.
I like that. I like that a lot. And so where can people find you on the socials? I know you have a great podcast, so listen to it. It's really good. I binged a few episodes on my walk yesterday. Where can people find you on the socials?
On Instagram, it's at Dr. Heather Bartos. I'm on Facebook too. And I'm trying, girl. I'm trying to get into TikTok. I don't know. I'm trying.
I know I'm with you
I'm
there.
really, I'm really, and it's the me spot on TikTok. And I keep threatening and I'm like trying to do it. So if people are there, I maybe like show up actually, because it's just TikTok's messing me out a little bit, but I love watching it.
I know I'm more of a voyeur than a doer there too.
Yeah. We should do accountability there. We should do it there. We should just do something fun there.
Yeah.
That's it. And then the Me Spot podcast, it's my little plug, my podcast blog, I call it, on Apple. And am I allowed to still say Spotify? I don't know.
Yeah,
Spotify.
no, I think Spotify stopped being canceled. I think because they did own up that Joe Rogan is kind of an asshole.
Yeah. I mean, I probably could have told them that prior.
I mean, many people could have told him that. And
right, you know.
I don't really understand his appeal either. I've been trying to figure that appeal out forever.
When did he become bald? I remember him we watched Fear Factor recently. I go, oh, he's bald now. I was like, when did that happen?
But then I was like, but was he balding back then? I couldn't remember.
I don't know. I mean, it was a tube. A tubey.
I couldn't remember, but I was like, yeah, I didn't remember him truly bald. But maybe he was like balding, so he just said, screw it, I'm just gonna shave my head.
I mean, he's got to do him.
Yeah, clearly he does. Heather, thank you so much for this. This was absolutely fabulous. And ladies, make sure you follow her because she is fabulous.
You're so sweet. I forgot we were even recording for half of this because we were just like blah 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 blah.
I know. That's what my podcast is all about. I'm like, I want it to be a genuine conversation.
I love your podcast. It's wonderful.
All right, ladies, have a fabulous day, and I will talk to you next week.